shareholders. I want everybody in the company, including all of the management and all the board and the workers, to all have a significant stake in the company. And then we're all rowing the boat in the same direction, because mining's a tough enough game as it is. And when you're all rowing the boat in the same direction, things work really well.
Welcome to the My Future Business Show, where we get you in front of your best audience and keep you there. Not only are we interviewing the biggest names in business to help you become even more successful, we're inviting you to book your spot on the show to help you grow your business. So at the end of the call, make sure you fill in the interview application form at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. Hi and welcome to the My Future Business Show. My name's Rick Nuske. I am your host and I get to speak to some incredibly talented people, and today is no different because I'm on the line with the wonderful Andrew Bowering. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Thanks very much, Rick. Pleasure to be here.
Yes. Now, for the context for everybody who's on the call today, we're going to be talking about silver at Apollo Silver Mining. Now, just so you are aware, everybody who's on the call with us today, Andrew is an independent chair of the board at Apollo Silver, and we're going to be talking about what makes silver so attractive and, importantly, how you can get involved with Apollo Silver as an investor. But before we do any of that, Andrew, I'd love to spend a couple of moments, which we do, I guess, customarily, learning a little bit about you. Now, where is home for you?
I'm in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada.
Fantastic. And where does, Apollo Silver operate?
Apollo Silver operates, well, our head office is here in Vancouver, but we have assets in California and assets in Arizona.
Yeah, fantastic. We can touch on that in some depth in a moment. But prior to doing that, I wonder, in your downtime, if you get much of that, Andrew, what do you like doing with yourself?
I'm a worker bee. I love to work. I enjoy cars and collecting art and stuff like that. But honestly, I'm a worker. Everybody knows that. I've been 35 years in the business. I've owned my own drilling companies, and I run several public companies. They're, Prime Mining at a $500 million market cap, American Lithium at a north of $500 million market cap, and
wow, lithium's a big thing at the moment, isn't it? With all the EV coming through,
it is. There's two big Chinese giant lithium companies outbidding each other for a lithium company I started 5 years ago. So yeah, it's a pretty exciting time.
Yeah, what a problem to have, hey? Now, in terms of when we're growing up, I love to just learn a little bit about what you can recall that you have fond memories of when you were growing up, and where was that? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in the Okanagan. That's a couple hundred kilometers east of where I live in Vancouver now, and my memories were gold panning and some of the smaller streams up in the Okanagan, and coin collecting.
So is that where you got your taste for the resources sector, do you think?
I think so. For sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, we all have, that entrepreneurial streak through us, and the people that are listening to this show today, Andrew, are entrepreneurs, and they always love to listen into, the very earliest stories about our entrepreneurial pursuits. Can you remember the first entrepreneurial pursuit that you ever had, good or bad?
I do. What I do, when I was 10 years old, we moved on to the border of a golf course. And within, 2 weeks of moving there, I was walking around the golf course collecting golf balls and selling them to the doctors and lawyers that played at the club. And I never looked back. I mean, I had a lot of money as a kid just from selling lost golf balls.
Yeah, absolutely. And oftentimes they're brand new, aren't they?
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. How many times you put one up on the tee and hit it into the woods, never to get it back, right?
Do you like playing golf?
I do. I do. I don't have a lot. I'm busy with work.
Yeah, so, no, I understand. Now, you and I touched on briefly earlier that, I enjoy the resources sector, being in the drilling game myself for a decade or so. You owned an organisation like that. Now, I know by sitting left to centre to CEOs and owners of those types of businesses that's hard work and that takes a bit of effort. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Well, so after high school, I went and worked in the drilling rigs in Western Canada, and I did that for 4 years. So I know from down to washing equipment to bolting it back together and making it operate. Of course, I went through university, and 15 or 20 years later, I find myself working for a gold exploration company and in the sales end of it, the IR end of it. And they were writing big checks to the drilling company. And I thought, I got enough experience in a drilling company to run one. And so I started one. And it was successful. And we ran it for a lot of years. I only sold my final stakeout in it 3 years ago and operated 7 drills across Canada. I've drilled iron ore, copper, gold, silver, pick them, I've drilled them. So, but I think that it helps you in any business, really being an entrepreneur and understanding the bottom line and how you make something successful. And I don't think enough people understand that in the public market sector,
Yeah, absolutely.
I've run, so I've done 9 deals in the 30-something years I've been in public markets. I've done 9 deals. 5 of them have been taken over for their assets. And the rest of them still trade today. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, my 2 lead companies are north of $500 million cap. So
you don't leave much on the table, do you? When you do this, you go all in, don't you?
Well, you do. You put it. I put a lot of my own money up in these things, and so as a result, I align myself with shareholders. I want everybody in the company, including all of the management and all the board and the workers, to all have a significant stake in the company. And then we're all rowing the boat in the same direction, because mining's a tough enough game as it is, and when you're all rowing the boat in the same direction, things work really well.
It's a harsh environment, and it takes some tenacity, definitely some skill to get the deposits out of the ground and find the right holes and continue on your journey. Now, talking about journeys, tell us a little bit about how it came to be that you're involved as a co-founder of Apollo Silver. How did this all happen?
Well, I mentioned about 3 years ago, I thought the timing was pretty good to get back into the precious metals trade. There'd been 8 or 9 years of pain, and it looked to me like there was enough pain in the trade that it was going to turn at some point, and then a little bit of luck, a lot of money printing around the world, and so you had to guess sooner or later that precious metals were going to kick off, and then I think COVID expedited that, of course, but the upshot of that was boom, precious metals on the significant increase. And then running a couple lithium companies, I know the push that's coming in the electric vehicle space, the renewable energy space, and that whole greening of the earth, and silver is a big component in that. So the real advantage to doing a silver deal is that you can capture all of those things. You can capture this potential big demand for the metal from the industrial sector, and then the insurance precious metals side of it, because of the money printing that's going on. You've got, considerable storing away of the metal. So I thought it was a good opportunity, a good time. And the guys that put my early shareholders in Prime and in American Lithium said, would you do a silver deal? And so I said, for sure. And that was almost 2 years ago. And it took us almost 2 years to find the right assets. And so we looked in Peru. We were really close on something in Peru from Peru's largest silver producer, Buenaventura, but there were some issues with community and royalties had a complication. So we dropped what we thought was a pretty good asset. We didn't pick it up. And then again, I was pretty close in Mexico on something, and with a pretty big silver company that was willing to give it to us, and we knew the asset well, and we knew what we could do to alter the plant and some other things. And anyway, there was complications there. And then some guys came to me with these assets in California and Arizona, and Tom Peregudoff, my CEO, who's spent 18 years with BHP.
Yeah, fantastic.
And another 7 working for Friedland as a CEO. Said, these are the assets. I think so too. We can build something here. We can deliver a return. So that's the long story of how I got into it.
Now, you focus on, your shareholders and looking after them, and obviously there's governance, there's structure, there's operational obligations, all the rest of the stuff that anybody can see by visiting your website. You've got some pretty significant players on board. So there must be, a wealth of silver deposits in these projects. Could you tell us a little bit about how all this part of it came about?
Sure. So the two primary assets we picked up are called Waterloo and Langtree, and they're two deposits that are side by side, but they have not been worked in many, many years. They were held by Superior Oil and Asarco owned the two assets in the early days. And then Waterloo was bought by Pan American and Langtree was bought by Athena Silver. And they held them for years. Pan American bought the Waterloo in the 90s, and Pan American has a resource on it of 102 million ounces silver at roughly 3 ounces a ton. In addition, it's got 13% barite, and barite is a strategic mineral in the U.S. It's on that strategic mineral list. 95% of it's imported in the U.S., and it's got significance. Barite is used as a weighting component in drilling fluids in the oil patch. And so it's got a great silver credit and a great barite credit. And it was an asset that was just sitting there because when it was picked up by Pan American, they at the time they were only interested in putting ounces on their balance sheet, not in production. And so they built up through the 90s a big inventory of silver projects. It wasn't until later on in that buildup that they decided to go into production themselves. And they went for the low-hanging fruit of South America. And while I get that, decision back then, I think that now we've got bigger problems there. And I've worked in South America quite a bit. And it's not as stable, and like Peru used to be looked at as one of the greatest places maybe second best in the mining industry for stability of mining, and they've had 6 presidents in the last year. So anyway, we picked up that asset. It's an unbelievable asset. It's and the Langtree is right beside it, and the big deal there is that when one company owns an asset and right next door another company owns another asset, you never get the returns of scale that you get when one company can own them both. 1 and 1 truly is 5 in this case. And if you look through our deck, you'll see the reasons why there's opportunities to expand in the middle. There's opportunities to mine them as one. There's a lot of opportunities. And so we saw a lot of low-hanging fruit, or lots of juice left in the orange, I guess, if you will. And we were able to purchase the assets at a price that was, we think, fair enough. We bought them at about 40 cents an ounce. And when you think that our comparables are trading at about $1.30 an ounce, we bought them at a pretty good price. So.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Obviously this takes a lot of investment, lots of capital. How do you go about raising, the money that you need to open up these size projects?
Well, my group's raised $180 million in the last 4 months, I would say. I would suggest to your readers or viewers have a look at some of the projects under our wing and look at some of who the shareholders are. Success has many fathers, but we have a good track record, and so people trust us with their money. And I would also suggest that I think every deal that I've done since the beginning of time has given early investors a 5 to 10 times their money coming out of the gate. And so
very attractive.
Yeah, and so we were able to raise $53 million for Apollo Silver in July of this year. We were able to use $30 million of that to buy out the asset from Pan American, and we sit with a really healthy treasury, and that gives us the freedom to spend the next 2 years doing everything that we need to do to get these resources compliant, so that we can then take them through an economic study of some kind, whether it's a PEA or a pre-feasibility study. But we're funded through that. So
excellent. Yeah, great. Thank you very much for sharing. I think to myself, what are your thoughts on the price of silver? We often hear about gold being the primary conversation in these types of circles, but I think silver's got its place.
I do. Sometimes I joke and I go for me, it's all about, can I make money at any price? And so we always have to look at the downside and say, hey, can we make any money at what's the long-term running average or the 10-year average on gold? It's maybe 1,400 or something like that. Mm-hmm. Can we make money at 1,400? Can we make money at $12 or $13 silver? And so you always have to make those assumptions when you look at buying something, just because. Yep. But I really believe that we've had a 9-year downtrend in the precious metals prices, except for the last year and a half, and that's just the beginning. And so most of the things that I buy, I mean, I think about a can of peas, for instance. You know, they've gone up 5 times in value in the last 20 years, and so I think the metal prices are due. I think there's going to be a run in them. I don't like to predict where they're going, but I think the trend is in our favor. Mm-hmm. I think that the silver demand that's coming. Well, and that was the thing I was going to suggest to you, was that, you know, at the time of the Bible, there was, what did the wise men bring to baby Jesus? They brought him 3 gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And 2 of those are pretty well gone now. The only one left is gold. And so the average gold investor, there are gold investors out there. They're smaller than by numbers, they're much smaller than silver investors. Mm-hmm. And silver is what do they call it? The people's money. It's a less expensive commodity. It's got a massive industrial demand. It's got supply restrictions due to its being a co-mined product, and that is that it's predominantly produced as a byproduct in copper, nickel, and zinc mining and lead, and so it's, to me, the future looks pretty bright for silver, given its uses in photovoltaic solar panels, EVs,
jewelry, and all the rest of it.
Yeah, and all the rest of it. It's the future looks bright for it, and I think that we can build something that's going to be successful, grow. Yeah. And ultimately, we'll get to sell it out to somebody at a much higher valuation later.
There's going to be a lot of, thank you again. There's going to be a lot of people on this call today, Andrew, who are interested in knowing as much as they can about Apollo Silver. And I'm wondering if you could share with us a little bit about the corporate structure and the team behind Apollo Silver. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that side of it?
Sure. So Apollo has about 150 million shares issued and outstanding. Mm-hmm. There's another 50 million shares in, I'll tell you, there's 63 million shares in derivatives. Yep. And those are warrants that are priced, 35 million of them are $1.25. So half of them are at 125, and then the balance are at about 60-cent average. So fully diluted, 225 million shares out. There's 17 million in working capital. And the share structure would be management's at just over 20%. High net worth strategic investors, 27 to 30%. Mm-hmm. Institutions, 30%. And then the balance is retail owned.
Yeah, fantastic. Do you find yourself actually going out to site yourself and having a look at these projects ever?
I do. What do I want to say about this? I know what I don't know, and I recognize that. I know enough geology to get me in trouble, and yes, and I like to. I'll put my money where my mouth is, but I'm not the mining engineer. Yep. I'm not the geo. I love to go have a look. I like to assess, hey, is there infrastructure here? Where's the water supply? Are there some ranches we can buy for the water, or is there a river we divert, or where's the water come from?
Amenities, yep.
Yeah, where do the raw materials come from? What's the community like? How are the people? Can we get along with the people? Can we give them jobs? Are they going to let us build a mine here? So touching, feeling, being on the ground is very important in anything you do. If you don't do that, we've only finished this deal off in late July, and we've already had 6 of our team on site for 2 weeks. So it's very hard to manage from a distance, and COVID's caused a bit of problems in that for the last year and a half. Yeah, but we're slowly coming out of that, and it makes for being on the ground and being close to what you do.
I know that there'll be a lot of people on here that don't really understand, but they certainly have the pockets to invest. But they would like to know, what type of technology goes into extraction of this type of deposit. Is it state of the art? What do you use to actually follow this process through?
Well, we have not determined that yet. Right. So we just have not decided yet, and that's of course comes from a lot of metallurgical testing and from some process determination to, at the end of the day, determine whether you're going to run a flotation circuit and produce a concentrate that you would sell off, or if we're going to actually run a carbon in leach or a carbon in pulp milling operation, and that's yet to be determined. Our first step is so what we bought, the resources are historic to us because there's been no independent verification of them in the last 7 years. And in your world, or in Australia, resources are generally determined to be JORC compliant, and then from there you can talk about them, do your economic studies. In our world, it's called NI 43101 compliance. And since we bought these assets from Pan American and from private holders to do with the Lang tree, we don't have what's called a 43101 compliant resource yet. Yes, there is historically 160 or 170 million ounces of silver there, but that's our job now to make that compliant. So over the next 3 to 4 months, we do some validation of the data. We look at the old chip trays where all the chips from the RC drilling is. We reassay some of the core from the core drilling that was done. Yep. If we have to, we put a couple holes in to confirm that the numbers that we get are the same as the previous numbers. I don't think that we're going to have to do that, and we're going to make some public statements about that fairly soon.
Yep.
But the reality is that we have to make these resources compliant by doing data verification and validation. And when that's done, then we will start to do some metallurgical testing. The metallurgy on these deposits is old. It's at least 40 years old. And the met work runs from 55% recoveries up to about 85% recoveries. And I think, and we think, that metallurgy's changed over the years, not the metallurgy of these deposits, but that recovery methods have changed over the years. And so we're looking forward to doing some new testing and seeing what the economic upshot of all that is.
Yeah, that's great feedback. I wonder, Andrew, do you have a team of geos, or do you have somebody who's locally au fait with the area and they understand the lay of the land, and are they involved in your projects?
We do. So we have several. We hired Kathy Fitzgerald. She's a VP geology. She spent 20 years in resource exploration development. She previously came from Ivanhoe Electric. That's one of Robert Friedland's big companies. Robert Friedland's the self-made billionaire that's built some pretty big mines worldwide. Alan O'Connor, general manager, 30 years technical and operational experience, came from De Beers, Canada. Tom Peregudoff, 30 years experience, geologist. Ignacio Rosado, list goes on. I can give you a list of people
I can imagine.
That are involved.
That's having the inside rail on knowing the topography of the lands would be, secret sauce almost.
Well, it is, and so it's pretty helpful. I got to be a bit careful in my discussions, but
of course,
but your listeners will be. If they follow the story, they'll notice that there's some things coming. There's some other additions to this team that are going to happen in the next little while, and they're very connected in not only in the industry but in the environmental circles and in California, and so
it all makes sense.
Yeah, that's all part of being successful. What I've found to be successful is you need a great asset, a great management team, and a great set of shareholders and investors. And if you can put those three things together, you can build something successful.
Yeah, you've got something very, very positive and bright with a bright future at Apollo Silver, that's for sure and certain. Now, I always think about project boundaries, and I know that the land doesn't stop at your boundary. It continues on, therefore the seams must continue on in sometimes, occasionally, hopefully. Is there any view to acquisitions of neighbouring properties? What's happening there?
Yeah, so there is... The lands that we own and have purchased here are fee simple. We own them outright. They've already been designated as mining jurisdiction.
Yep.
So, but the ground that surrounds them belongs to the BLM. That's the Bureau of Land Management. And it's a little more complicated to get approvals to explore on that and then ultimately to mine on that. Mm-hmm. Now, it's very possible. There's a section... And if you go and look at the maps of our properties and you look between the two, you'll see that it looks like, hey, there's an area here that these guys probably should own. And it makes complete sense. So our plan is to go see the BLM and do a land swap with them. So we'll go buy some other land somewhere else and give them that in exchange for this land that adjoins our two pieces. And so that's one way to get upside. And then we have staked some additional ground in certain areas of it. I don't want to get into exactly where and what yet.
That's fine.
We're waiting for approval of our staking, and so we'd rather.
Yep.
We really knew exactly
Skirt that one.
Yeah.
Yep. No, I understand. I really do appreciate this conversation. Thank you.
And then I'll tell you the other thing too is that so we have another project in the company. It's called the Arizona Silver District, and it's got some really good opportunities for big grassroots discovery, and we look forward to going to work there. But what I want to suggest is that I learned early in life to always have a plan B, and so rarely will you see a single asset company with me. I'm always looking to, at the right point in time, buy something else that makes sense. I used that phrase earlier, 1 and 1 is 5, but effectively I'll use it again, and that's at some point here. We will deliver on the things that we've said we were going to deliver on. And when we do, the market will give us a higher valuation. And then other things will come along, like the silver price will spike. And all of a sudden we'll get a much higher valuation. And usually what I do in those situations is I then go and buy something that I've been looking at for a while that makes sense. And so this company continues to look at other assets.
Yep.
We keep the doors open, and when the time is right, and if the price is right, we would strike on something else. And the reason for that is that there's a big vacuum between silver companies that have a 200 million market cap and the $1 billion intermediates, and then the multi-billion dollar big boys. But that gap between 200 million and $1 billion is something that's just ripe for a U.S. silver company. And so for us, it'll be developing Calico Silver, moving it along, getting it through pre-feasibility, getting some valuation in the market for that, doing some early exploration work at the Arizona Silver District, hopefully getting some valuation in the market for that, and then potentially finding another big asset that goes with it. And now we're at that part of the food chain where somebody wants to take you out. So
this is great feedback. I'm really enjoying the conversation, Andrew. I just momentarily, if I could please, you're talking about that, they're going through the feasibility just a moment ago, and all the work that has to be done pre-production. How long is that going to take from here, do you think?
We'll probably get into we will deliver a maiden resource for Waterloo and for Langtree sometime in, my guess, early 2022. And then, by then, we will also be into some exploration on the property. We're just in the process of doing geophysics across the property. We've already established several areas that we need to do some further drilling to extend. Many of the old holes ended in mineralization. And, nobody ever wants to end a hole in mineralization. So we're going to go back and drill some deeper. We're going to go drill long strike, and we're going to test some other structures. And if some of that's significant, and we know, and so we would probably have an idea on that by maybe second quarter of next year. And if some of that's significant, then we might have to look at doing a new resource calculation to add that in. But so you're kind of on two critical paths then. But the upshot of all that is that ultimately we would want to lead this to an economic study sometime in late 2022. And
Excellent.
so, and I'm not sure yet whether, but it would likely be a PFS, so a pre-feasibility study. Most of the resource will be measured and indicated, we would think. So should be able to get to a PFS. And then from there, it's depending on our treasurer, we have to raise any more money or not, or we're just buttoning things down and then going through a feasibility study. And then of course you make your decisions from there, whether you're doing it yourself, looking for a partner, or looking for a buyer.
It's par for the course, isn't it? You've done this numerous times now. It's something that's you're fairly familiar with, I suspect. Now, when people get to the point that they go, look, I need to know more about this, I want to get involved as an investor, what is the process for them, and where are they going to find out more information?
There'll be a lot of exposure on us. There generally is. We've got a pretty big following. Our American Lithium, the sister company, has 45,000 US shareholders. So
oh wow.
Yeah,
just a few.
Yeah. Yeah. So and we've got some of the bigger investors on the globe in our company. So
yes, I've seen some of the list, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't want to name drop. But,
no, of course not.
There's a good following. It's worth checking us out. And it starts, I guess, with a visit to our website. So,
of course. Look, all of that being said, Andrew, this has just been a wonderful brief insight into your world, and I really do appreciate it, as do the My Future Business audience. Now, for everybody who's on the call today, if you're looking for more information, I'll be making sure that the links back to Andrew and Apollo Silver are available. No matter where you see this call, you will see those links back to Apollo Silver, and the website for that is apollosilver.com. So, in closing, Andrew, I've really, really enjoyed the call today. Thank you very much for joining me.
My pleasure, Rick. Really appreciate it. Thanks for having me. I love chatting about what I do.
Thanks for joining us today. If you enjoyed the call, then make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, share us with your friends, and book your spot on the show at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. And if you're looking for solutions that will help grow your business, then visit myfuturebusiness.com/shop.